Afternoon, guys. Today is Wednesday, February 7th, 2018. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the CEO of Hill Story Marketing, and this is the Daily Mix TV. So here's what's going on. Market opened down again today, but now it's roaring back and it's up over 100 points. I said this yesterday. We're going to be on a roller coaster ride for a little while. Do me a favor, because I've seen so many people online overreacting and getting nervous and scared, and understandably so. Don't get me wrong. Relax. This is not the start of a correction that we've all been thinking is coming, okay? It is, however, a sign of a softening of the economy. Problem is, when the government raised interest rates two times in a row, and granted fractionally, but still nonetheless it went up, in a high credit debt situation, again, as I said yesterday, the problem is people are paying out more cash to the credit card companies in interest instead of taking that cash and buying more goods and services. So right about now you're saying, why is the marketing and business guy talking about the stock market? It's very simple. It affects everything. Consumer confidence means everything in terms of spend, in terms of health of business, those kinds of things. Now, what you have in terms of the lack of consumer confidence or the softening of it is that because there's less cash in the market, people are going to be less inclined to spend money on the nice-to-haves. This is especially important as next week is Valentine's Day. So you're going to have probably lower than expected sales, certainly lower than expected earnings coming out of this first quarter. As we get into the second quarter of the year, where hopefully things will solidify a little more and stabilize. Now, the other problem you're going to have in terms of why this is important is because marketers are very well aware of what's happening and what's going on. So right about now, there might be a handful of marketers in a conference room saying, oh my God, we need to spend more money on media and advertising in order to make sure that we're promoting our products to the maximum amount of folks. Okay? The juxtaposition to that is you also have companies and marketers in those companies who are saying, you know what, we got to pull back on spend because we got to save money for Q2, 3, and 4. All right, that is true. You need to have a balance in your budget. The inherent problem to that is if you pull back on spend, your competitor's going to increase spend, which means they're going to get more market share because they're the ones who are talking to the consumer while you're not. That's a big issue, and that's a lot of what happened after the 2008 Great Recession, okay? It gave rise, as an example in the spirits business, to value brands like Popov and Georgie and Vodka Vodka and so on and so forth. For the first time in history, you had consumers down trading in terms of the value of their spirit. So they may have been drinking Grey Goose, which is a super premium, and then downgrading to a value brand because, frankly, you can get a jug at $20 versus spending $50 on a 750 milliliter. So the value was off, certainly because of consumer perception and the amount of cash in the market. So we're walking on that line right now, and marketers, make no mistake about it, will definitely react. Speaking of marketers and speaking of challenges in the market, this morning it came out that actor and comedian Jim Carrey came out swinging against Facebook. Yeah, of all things. It's interesting. He's calling for people to unfriend the social behemoth and sell their shares, such as what he's doing. Why? Because he says that they fail to oversee how many companies or brands or phony people were spending money on behalf of the so-called or alleged Russian involvement in the 2016 election. Now, it's been proven that Facebook did accept money in order to push out fake platforms and things like that, which got in the middle of the election cycle. Here's the reason why I bring this up. First of all, Facebook did not commit an act of treason. They didn't know what they were doing in terms of accepting that money. They thought it was just an advertiser or somebody who was boosting posts and so on. The reality is, though, that they did, in fact, fail to oversee it. So Facebook's going to have a lot of challenges coming out the pipe in Q1 and 2 of the year just because of the negative news cycle against the brand. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am. I think that between this and what's going on in terms of Facebook changing their news feed and the algorithm yet again, which means brands are going to have to spend more money to target consumers on the platform. So keep an eye on that one. Google, in terms of New York City, amazing transaction took place. So they have acquired the Chelsea Marketplace in what is the second highest commercial real estate transaction in New York history. They bought the Chelsea Marketplace for over $2 billion. Over the last decade, they've been spending a lot of money buying buildings up around that property in order to create almost an urban campus, if you will, a la NYU and so on and so forth. So it's going to be interesting to see what fun nicknames we come up with for this. I'm betting on Alphabet Alley. But it'll be cool to see what they do in terms of the surrounding neighborhood and how they help to promote, because that's what companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft and Facebook and so on, that's what they do when they buy up large chunks of real estate in urban environments. So keep an eye on that one. Lastly, and this is something two other things, excuse me. Elon Musk yesterday, wow. The Falcon Heavy SpaceX rocket ascended through the heavens and deposited Elon's Tesla convertible, his Roadster, into outer space. The hope is that it will eventually hit Mars. Who knows if that's going to actually happen or not. This is really cool for, a Generation X kid who, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, you loved watching all the rocket launches and the space shuttle takeoffs and stuff like that. I mean, I even still choke up thinking about the Challenger disaster, which we just celebrated the unfortunate anniversary of in the last couple of weeks. So, it's definitely a different time. When George Bush, when he was president, George W. Bush, decided to kill the shuttle program, that really that left a bad taste in my mouth. And it's nice to see that the private sector is coming out with, obviously government subsidiaries and so on, trying to promote space travel and exploration again. So hopefully this turns into something where, yes, in fact, Elon's dream of, colonizing Mars and so on and so forth happens. It certainly would be a Generation X kid's dream as well. Lastly, I got to bring it up. Retail. It continues to amaze me how, let's talk about chain drugs specifically, how companies like Walgreens, and I'm a Walgreens customer, so don't get me wrong, how they continue to screw the system up. So it's come to my attention that in recent months, they've started pulling mainstay brands off the shelf. So as an example, you go to the frozen section at a Duane Reade. Duane Reade is owned by Walgreens. And you no longer see Ben & Jerry, you no longer see Talenti, you no longer see Haagen-Dazs, except in the novelty section, because it costs a lot of money to manufacture smaller versions of big products and so on. But if you've got a scale in terms of your production, well, then your costs are lower and it makes more sense. However, why are they doing this? In favor of their private label brand, Nice. Here's the problem I have with that. And I buy Walgreens branded generics like ibuprofen and things like that. So it's nothing against Walgreens per se in that way. Where I have an issue is Generation X and baby boomers are incredibly brand loyal. So I noticed in my local Duane Reade, they stopped carrying Charmin. That's not a good thing, because now the money that I spend at Duane Reade is going to go to Fresh Direct, or it's going to go to Boxed, or one of those guys. But I'm becoming less and less inclined to spend money at Duane Reade, A, because Walgreens keeps raising their prices, which is ridiculous, and it's completely out of proportion. Second, because they're no longer carrying a lot of brands that people like me use. And that's a big problem, because it's all about greed for them. I get it, they're in business to make money. Challenge I have, stop playing games with your consumer and your fans' wallet, because you want to make more money in private label. So for those who don't understand, when a retailer of any kind ends up purchasing product at wholesale and selling at retail, they end up making a little less amount of money. Whereas if they actually manufacture the product under a license or under a co-packer or something like that, they end up making a much higher margin. So of course you're going to promote that product over the one that you had to buy at wholesale, because your margins outweigh it significantly. So I get it, Walgreens is trying to make more money. What I don't get, and why, is they're driving down sentiment, and I'm no longer living at the corner of happy and healthy, so much so to the point that I may actually pull all my prescriptions out of Duane Reade and transfer them over to CVS. who incidentally continues to sell the products that I happen to buy. So that's my spiel for the day. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the CEO of Hill Story Marketing. I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Daily Mix TV. Thank you for watching.